I really wanted to do something to bring across this message of hope to survivors of rape and abuse. I had found that there were just so many people in my life who had similar stories to mine and who weren't able to share it or didn't feel that they were able to share it. And so I thought that perhaps if I walk from Johannesburg to Cape Town and share my story, it would make a difference. Perhaps it would encourage others to share their stories. People said to me when I said I'm going to walk to Cape Town, they would say, but that's so extreme. And my response would usually be, this problem that we're facing is extreme. Cape Town isn't far enough.
Was that word?
Searching for sanity.
Find my sanity.
Find my flower.
Find a single seed of yesterday, for I have lost it.
I search my heart, my tired mind,
my broken body, my torn vagina bleeding,
my skin saturated with your semen,
filling every orifice, seeping into every sacred cave. The beginning was noisy. The beginning I was petrified. I was really afraid. That first week, walking from Johannesburg, I remember waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning and we were camping out in this forest along the Vaal River. And I remember opening my eyes and thinking to myself, what am I doing here? This is insane. This is crazy. I need to pack up. I need to go home. This is never going to happen. And that first week, the first 2 weeks, all I could think about was how afraid I was. And at first I was afraid because I was in a strange place. I was out of my comfort zone. And every day I was walking further and further away from home. But then I became afraid of what was happening inside of me because I started thinking about all of those negative feelings I held towards myself. I started thinking about how afraid I was of my own life experience. When I was about 5 years old, I remember it was before I started school, one Saturday my mother and sister went out to the shops and I was in the kitchen looking for something to eat. My father walked into the kitchen and he took me by the hand into my parents' bedroom. And he began teaching me how to arouse him and eventually climbed on top of me. And that was the beginning of what would be our father-daughter time together for the next 3 years or so. Whenever there was an opportunity or whenever he felt like it, my father would molest me, he would have sex with me, and he would tell me that it was our secret.
I think when you're talking about sexual violence, it's very important to remember that many women, many children don't tell. And they rather live with that secret than speak out. And there are a number of reasons for that. One is, particularly with children, is secrecy or getting a child to keep quiet often involves the use of threats. And they'll say to a young child, you know, if you tell your mummy she'll die or she'll get sick and your daddy will go to jail, and then who's going to look after you? Now a 5-year-old can't work out fantasy from reality.
When I was 14, my mom went away for work for the weekend, and my sister had some friends over at the house. And unfortunately, some boys that nobody really knew came over, and they stayed the weekend in the house. They had guns and they played loud music and they drank a lot of alcohol, and they drugged me and they raped me. And because I was drugged, at first I didn't remember a lot of it, but what I did remember was passing out and coming to, and every time I came to, that there was a different guy on top of me, and they all stood around the room cheering and laughing and having a good time. I remember screaming. I remember trying to fight and passing out each time. I woke up, I think it was the Sunday morning, and I was naked and I was aching all over, but I couldn't remember what had happened. And then suddenly it all started coming back to me, what these boys had done, and that I had no control, that they had just taken from me, and I didn't even know how many times, just that it went through the night.
We have to remember, as heinous as these acts are, these men were also children, and I'm in no way defending their behaviour. It has been judged by the courts, they have been given a sentence. However, they were also innocent little children once. They didn't, they weren't born to be violent. They learned that systematically over years and years of maltreatment. They didn't develop resilience, and this is in part one of the reasons why they exploded.
My sister took me to the clinic the morning that I needed to go back to school, and she got me the morning after pill, and she said to me, "This is going to make you feel a little bit sick, but after that everything's going to be okay. We're just going to forget this ever happened." And that's exactly what I did. I went to school that morning and I was running for student council, and I remember standing in front of my standard 7 class in my green school blazer and a big smile on my face with my notes, giving my speech to be elected onto the student council. And it's really only now when I look back at that experience that I realize how in that moment that I stood there giving that speech after the weekend that had just happened, a weekend of rape and fear and really being terrorized, and choosing to keep that secret, that in that moment I abandoned myself. I left myself. When I left high school, I decided that I wanted to be a psychologist. I wanted to help people. I hadn't really gotten to the point where I was helping myself. So in my second year of varsity, I had a major breakdown and spent the next 4 years trying to recover. But I started out wanting to help people, and I started out wanting to get my degree in order to help people. Unfortunately, because of my mental health, I battled with depression. I had an eating disorder. I tried to commit suicide several times. I really struggled with anxiety and just feelings of helplessness and worthlessness that made it very difficult for me to function in the normal world. I spent the first few years after my breakdown, I really just spent feeling all of that pain and anger. But when I was ready, I started to work on it. I started to go back into those painful places. I started to explore those experiences, to talk about them, and I began to heal my life. So I was in my late 20s when I felt like I had done that, like I had healed my life, and I was ready to move on. And I moved to Tanzania, where my mother was working at the time, thinking this is a great opportunity to write and take photographs and figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. I was in Tanzania, staying in Dar es Salaam for about 3 months, and had made lots of friends, really enjoyed it there, when I was invited to go to a fashion show with someone that I had befriended there. And I remember saying to my mom this night that I was getting ready to leave, I remember saying to her, I've finally done it. I feel like God has come and healed my life, and this is it. All the bad stuff is behind me. It's all over. This is my new beginning. This is it. I can feel it. I know that it is. Nothing is going to go wrong from here on out. And that night, I went to the fashion show, and this friend that I had made locked me in his home, and he pinned me down and he raped me. I remember trying to get away, running through his house, fighting him off. I remember feeling like I was really fighting for my life and not being able to stop him, and how incredibly helpless, helpless I felt, even more so than when I was younger, because I'd now been through so much. I'd healed so much. I was stronger, I was older, I was able to fight back, I was able to say no, but it didn't make a difference. There was still nothing that I could do. I was still alone, vulnerable, and powerless. And it happened again.
First time I met Charlene was at a vet. My dad's little doggy was sick, and our usual vet was away on leave. It was over December time, so I had to take the little dog to another vet, and lo and behold, Charlene was working there, and we got along fantastically from the first day that we met.
After Tanzania, I buried myself in the house until eventually I was willing to get a part-time job. So I took that first step. Colin asked me to marry him, and I took that next step. And that was certainly a huge source of strength for me in my life. And so it opened me up a little bit more to healing, and it opened me up a little bit more to experiencing joy. When I was 26, I felt that I was ready to find my dad and to try and fix our relationship. But when I went and looked for him, I found that he was being taken care of by his sister in Uitenhage, and that he'd had several strokes, which had left him bedridden. He was blind. He'd lost a large percentage of his brain function, so he couldn't speak, and he couldn't really understand why it is I was there or what it is I was saying to him.
She one day came up to me and said to me, "I'm walking to Cape Town." And I said, "You what?" She said, "I'm walking to Cape Town." I said, "We got a car, we could drive, there's trains, we could buy you a plane ticket." But she says, "I'm walking to Cape Town."
I walked mostly by myself. I was blessed with a lovely young man who came to be my support driver, and so he would drop me off in the morning, and then he would pick me up later on in the day when I was done walking. But on 2 occasions I was having a really rough time. When I got to Burried West, I was exhausted, I was in pain, I was depressed, and I really felt like I couldn't carry on anymore. And at that stage, my brother-in-law rocked up on a bus from Joburg, and he came and stayed with me for 3 days and walked with me. And I'm pretty sure I would not have been able to do that stretch if Carlo wasn't there walking with me, so that really helped.
The biggest support I would say that I gave her was to speak to her on a daily basis, to find out, to listen to her day. Whatever obstacles she encountered, she would talk to me about them, and that is our support structure for each other.
I think that the walk did make a difference. I can certainly say for myself that it has deepened my healing, and that it has helped me to resolve a lot of the anger and confusion that I had around my experiences. Certainly my relationship with my father underwent a tremendous process during the walk. I thought a lot about what had happened and went into those very difficult places. And at the end of the walk, I realized that my father and I were in many ways in the same boat, that we were in need of the same kind of healing, the same salvation, and that all of the men that have raped me and that have hurt me in ways like that, that all of us really need the same kind of healing.
The reality is that most people who go to jail are going to be released one day, and they are going to come back to our communities. And yes, it's fine locking someone up for 20 years, 25 years, whatever it is the court deems, and then the Department of Correctional Services, but they are going to come back to our communities. And without the right help, without the right support, there is a very good chance that any offender will re-offend unless he or she gets the help that they need. And as a society, I realize this is an incredibly difficult and very sensitive issue for us to get our heads around. But, you know, people are going to come out of jail and they're going to return to their communities. And what are we as a society doing to address that?
My pain and anger, to stop all the pain and anger that's happening out there, it had to be about something that was positive, that was full of light and even laughter. It had to be about me stepping back into my joy, reconnecting with my joy, and inviting others to do the same.
I can take it.
Healing is not a case of popping a pill and speaking to a psychologist. It is hard work going back into those places that you don't want to go into. It's hard work pulling out all of that anguish. It's hard work looking at yourself and starting out with a picture that you actually can't stand to look at. But it's wonderful at the end of the day, looking at yourself and seeing someone that you can embrace, someone that you are proud of, someone that you can see the beauty in. I embrace you. I embrace me.
Every hurt I hold within my hands,
I wrap my hands around my heart,
only to set me free,
to let me be.
I am restored by the brokenness in me.